Hello students. Today we are going to take up the play On the Face of It by Susan Hill from your textbook Vistas. So this play highlights the predicament of the physically disabled in our society. And essentially it suggests that the physically challenged people should focus on the brighter side of life and should not brood over the shortcomings. The society also should accept them as they are. In this way, the physically challenged can fight their depression, loneliness, and disappointment. A little about the author. Susan Hill, novelist, children's writer, and playwright, born in England in the year 1942. Her first novel, The Enclosure, was published in 1961. She has won the Somerset Maugham Award for her book, I'm the King of the Castle. And Hill, let me tell you, is known for fiction for children and her radio plays. So let's first understand, what does the author mean by the title? On the face of it, I've tried to collect definitions from Macmillan, Collins, Oxford Dictionary, and we shall discuss the relevance of the title once we have understood the main gist of the play. But before we proceed, let us understand, what does this phrase mean, on the face of it? So it is used for saying that something appears to be true but might not be true when you have examined it in more detail. Or it could be used when you are describing how a situation or a person seems on the surface, as we say, superficially, or as something appears to you when you first look at it, especially when your first impression may be or was wrong. So that is the meaning of the phrase on the face of it. Now let us understand how it is appropriate a little later in the presentation. Through the medium of this presentation, we are going to learn about Mr. Lamb, Derry, and Derry's transformation. Before we proceed, I just want to check with you. Have you read the play? Because it is pertinent that you should read the play first before you go through the presentation. Okay, so the setting of the play is Mr. Lamb's garden, where he grows crab apples and he makes toffee and jelly for children who frequent the garden. Then the main characters are Mr. Lamb, who is an old man with a tin leg. It was blown off in a war. Derry, a 14-year-old boy with a burnt face. And this burn mark is on account of acid that was spilled on his face. The theme is about the sense of isolation felt by a physically impaired person and how to overcome it. And a very important thing that is brought through the medium of this play is that life is to be celebrated despite all the difficulties. And children, this applies to all, not only the physically impaired people, but all of us. We need to celebrate life. So let's look at the brief summary of the play. It depicts the friendship between an old man and a young boy who is solitary and rebellious. This boy, Derry or Derek, secretly enters Mr. Lamb's garden and is caught by him. But Lamb is more than welcoming. Derry is in a very disturbed state of mind because of the apathy of the world towards the feelings of physically impaired people. And we will go through the examples of this indifference a little later. Mr. Lamb tries to strike a chord by putting him at ease. He is successful to some extent initially, since Derry feels a kind of affinity with him on account of his disability. So he's able to connect with Mr. Lamb because he is also physically challenged like Derry. Mr. Lamb's optimistic approach has a positive influence on Derry, and Derry is impressed by Mr. Lamb's perspective on life. The way he talks about flowers and weeds. He talks about bees buzzing and singing, the difference. As you have read the play, you would understand what I'm saying. Now, he also wants a house without curtains, with a garden. Derry gives up his skeptical attitude and is prepared to face life. We are now going to look at some of the important lines from the play. Now, I've tried to put together some of the lines, but as I said earlier, it's advisable to read the play. So this one, I don't mind who comes into the garden, the gates always open, is on page 57 and spoken by Mr. Lamb, just to show Derry that he was welcome in his garden. And the second dialogue also is by Mr. Lamb, all welcome, you are welcome, again from page 57. The red ones are spoken by Derry, and you can see the difference in the way they are being, put forth. It burned it all away. It ate my face up. It ate me up. So here you can see the anguish of Derry. By the way, this is on page 58. The pain that Derry has felt for all these years. There's nothing God made that doesn't interest me. Now look at the perspective of Mr. Lamb that is clearly reflected in this line. That I am interested in everything. I celebrate life. This is on page 59. Why is one green growing plant called a weed and another flower? Where's the difference? It's all life. A very important dialogue, children, on page 59. This clearly shows that Mr. Lamb has a very positive way of looking at things. And that's why he's saying that a weed and flower, both are plants. Then why is it that we differentiate between the two? And then he goes on to say this, it's all relative, Beauty and the Beast. So essentially, it's in your mind. And like we've done this line earlier also, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. So the person who's looking at a particular thing, he knows whether it is beautiful or not. Then the next dialogue is by Derry. Only my mother, and she kisses me on the other side of my face. Again, this also shows the kind of hatred Derry has for all the people who try to show some kind of pity on him or sympathize on him, even his mother, to that extent that she does not kiss on the side of the face where there is the burnt acid mark, but she kisses on the other side of the face. And think of all those people worse off than you. Now, this is another dialogue which is by Mr. Lamb and on page 60. And he's just trying to justify that, look, you are a physically fit person. It's just the acid mark that is there. And there are other people who are in a worse off condition. Then we have another dialogue by Derry. Look at that. That's a terrible thing. That's a face only a mother could love. This is what I was talking about when I said that people were indifferent to the pain that Derry felt. And to say something like this shows the apathy of the people. You are peculiar. You say peculiar things. You ask questions I don't understand. Now, this particular line is on page 61, and this line is showing that somewhere Mr. Lamb has been able to have a kind of an impact on Derry's heart. Then some hear bees and they say, bees buzz. I hear them singing, my bees. So again, this shows his perspective towards things. That some say that it's an irritating sound that bees make, but for me, bees sing, which is very sonorous. So it's the way you look at things. And that's what I said the first thing. It is necessary that physically challenged people should look at the positive side of life. I'm not fond of curtains, shutting things out, shutting things in. Now, this again is a very important dialogue made by Mr. Lamb on page 62. this one clearly shows that somewhere he was lonely. He wanted to be like an open book. And then the last one on this page, boy, you've got 2 arms, 2 legs, ears and eyes. You've got a tongue and a brain. Page 63 clearly shows that he is telling Derry that why do you have this kind of inferiority complex, or why do you sulk in self-pity? You are a normal boy and there is no need. You can be better than the rest if you want to be. Then the next page takes us to some more important lines. Friends everywhere, people come in, everybody knows me, the gates always open. This is by Mr. Lamb and clearly reflects his pain that he is a lonely man. He feels the alienation that most of the physically challenged people feel. That would do you more harm than any bottle of acid. Acid only burns your face. And look at now, I put this in red, Derry, only. He says just one word, children, only. But the fact is that he is totally shocked that Mr. Lamb considers his burnt mark to be insignificant because this particular mark has consumed his whole life. He has given it so much importance, and here is this man who feels that acid only burns your face. The next line again is an example of the indifference of people, where Derry tells Mr. Lamb that he had heard people saying that he would be better off with others like himself. And he feels so bad about it. He's disgusted at the way people looked at him. And the next line, I'd like a place like this, a garden. I'd like a house and no curtains. This is on page 64, a very important line. I've highlighted it also because this line actually shows the turning point. This line shows that the transformation is happening, and it also shows that Mr. Lamb has had the desired effect on Derry. So you're not lost, are you? When does he say that? Well, he says this on page 65 when Derry says, I like the pitter patter of rain. Once you got home, you'd never let yourself come back. This line reflects the loneliness that is there in the heart of Mr. Lamb. I want something no one else has got or ever will have. Something just mine like this garden. And in this line, you can see that he wants to be like Mr. Lamb. He wants a house without curtains. He does not want to sulk in self-pity any longer. We all know I'll come back. They never do, though, not them, never to come back. Page 67, the last line, the closing line of scene 1, which shows that Mr. Lamb is very apprehensive. Why? Because no one ever comes back. And I want to be there and sit and listen to things, listen and look. This is from page 67, from the second scene, when Derry is saying it in front of his mother that now nothing can stop him because he wants to be with that old man. And the last line, because if I don't go back there, I'll never go anywhere in this world again, clearly shows us that Mr. Lamb has had the desired effect on Derry. Now this slide shows you the similarity, that is, the disability of Mr. Lamb and Mr. Derry was the common feature, but these are the character traits of Mr. Lamb and Derry which are different. So Mr. Lamb has a positive attitude. He accepts life as it comes. People make fun of him, call him Lamy Lamb, yet he does not care. He enjoys life, sits in the sun, reads books, welcomes children, makes toffees and jelly for them, and loves company of friends. Whereas Derry has a negative outlook. He is dejected and lonely, defiant and withdrawn, does not trust anyone, skeptical and cynical. So Derry's transformation is very important. That's in fact the most important part of the chapter. As you can see, Mr. Lamb's unceasing enthusiasm and optimism had a positive impact on Derry. He called him blessed because he says you have everything. The conversation between the two, ranging from pretty girls to bees singing, attitude towards weeds, flowers, beauty being relative, views on world and friendship. These are the important points that you must quote if you have to talk about Derry's transformation. And all this changed him from a pessimistic and skeptical boy to a confident young man who wants a house with a garden and no curtains, who enjoys the pitter-patter of rain and confidently defies his mother. Now, another very important aspect of this play is Mr. Lamb's loneliness. So here I've tried to put together the examples that clearly tell us that Mr. Lamb was essentially a lonely man. So as you know that his leg was blown off years back and kids called him Lamey Lamb. He lived all alone in his house, and there are various indicators that reveal Mr. Lamb's loneliness. To start with, he spends time watching, listening, thinking. When Mr. Lamb tells Derry that he has lots of friends, Derry tells him that he was lying and that he was miserable and no one would know if he were alive or dead and nobody would care. Mr. Lamb became defensive and on Derry's asking could not tell the names of his friends. He has a house without curtains. He doesn't like shutting things in or shutting things out. He liked the light and the darkness. That's what it says. And he liked the windows to be open every time. So when Derry leaves, Mr. Lamb admits to himself that nobody ever came back. Mr. Lamb tries to overcome his loneliness by welcoming people into the garden with his gates always open. And that is why we see that he is totally flustered when Derry says that he has to go back to his mother once. The other important thing that often is asked in the play is the appropriateness of the title. We discussed the phrase at the beginning of the presentation. So just quote one definition. The title on the face of it is used when you are describing how a person seems on the surface, but this changes with familiarity. That will be your first paragraph. And then you move on and talk about how it is imperative to view others by removing our classes of prejudice, disgust, and dislike. Mr. Lamb, this is the second paragraph, Mr. Lamb appears to be a cranky, old, lonely man, but in reality he is a loving, compassionate, and generous man. Derry, a young boy who looks like a skeptical fellow, but inwardly he has a strong desire to be loved and understood. So on the face of it, Mr. Lamb tries to show he has many friends, but his actions show that he feels lonely and craves for company. So this will be your second paragraph with 3 value points and then the conclusion. It appears that there is so much diversity, but in reality they are all one with a desire to live and grow with mutual acceptance. And that is why Susan Hill has chosen the most appropriate title on the face of it. Let's solve some questions as per the CBSE format. This is the MCQ. Because if I don't go back there, I'll never go back anywhere in this world again. Derry insists on going back because option C, his meeting with him has proved to be a turning point and he's ready to face the world. Derry's mother kissed him on the other side of the face. Yes. Option B. Short answer questions, 2 markers. How does Mr. Lamb keep himself busy when it is a bit cool? This is a question that came in one of the CBSE papers. Yes, picking the crab apples, making jelly and toffee, reading books, sitting in the sun. Who was Derry? What did he suffer from? Derry is a 14-year-old boy. He has an acid-burned face. He suffers from inferiority complex and therefore he hated himself. He did not like to be around people as they were scared of him. The first 2 points are very important. After that, you can mention any 2 points. This is from sample question paper which has been released by board this year. Mr. Lamb calls Derry his friend while Derek refuses his affirmation. Would you consider their relationship with each other as friendship? Support your answer with reference to the instances from the text. It's very important, children, to substantiate your answer with examples. So you'll find that some of the words are being repeated because these are the key words. Mr. Lamb's positivity, optimism, maturity, persistence towards Derek, acceptance of Derek with all his imperfections. Then Derek also gradually opens up, finds his company appealing. He argues his condition has made him bitter, people's behavior and treatment. He believes if he becomes Mr. Lamb's friend, others might stop considering him their friend. His words have an impact. He overcomes issues holding him back. So this is exactly what is given in the marking scheme released by CBSE. The last paragraph, the conclusion is going to be important because you have to deal with the second part of the answer. Would you consider their relationship with each other as friendship? And as it says that they shared a bond that friends usually do, therefore one can call it friendship. Again, this question is also from one of the CBSE papers. Both Mr. Lamb and Derry suffer from problems. Mr. Lamb had a tinned leg, whereas Derry had a burnt face, but both of them differ in their attitude towards handling their problems. And here again you have Mr. Lamb, the way he handles his problem. He's very positive about it. He sees beauty in everything. He doesn't let physical handicap prevent him. He's very friendly. He sees the world. He sees that the world and people are important. He's strong, practical, and understanding. Whereas Derry is scared of meeting people. He hates seeing their fear of him. He's very sensitive. He's upset with parents' overprotectiveness. He's defiant, negative about everything. He indulges in self-pity. He hates sympathy. And his inner deep desire is to be accepted by people, and changes at the end after listening to Mr. Lamb, ready to face the world and overcome obstacles to do so. He finds courage and strength to get what he wants. And that's the end of it. Good luck. Hope this presentation is helpful. Thank you.